Darling, I know it's hard to let go. Soon I will hold you again.
Everyone loves change until it touches something that they didn't want to be changed. I learned this the hard way a couple of years ago when my wife and I decided to move from Fresno, California to Tacoma, Washington. We packed up everything we owned except for an aquatic turtle who we gave to a friend that worked at a local pet store and moved 1,400 miles north up to Tacoma, Washington, just south of Seattle. What I thought was going to be a smooth transition with a better job and a chance at purchasing our first home relatively quickly was met with frustration, a level of homesickness that I didn't know existed, and a whole lot of doubt. Let me tell you that dealing with change and transition is not easy, but if I can do it, you can too. So here are a couple of tips for how to deal with transition and how to make the most of it. Step one is to embrace the doubt. I think this is my biggest takeaway from this whole process. Doubt usually has a pretty negative connotation to it, but I've realized that without a healthy level of questioning, it's hard to ever be certain if what we've done or what we believe is right. Rather than view it as the slow death to our certainty, it's much better to see it as the evidence that our faith in whatever it is that we're talking about has a pulse. We moved in September of 2017 and plan on buying a home within a couple of months, but let's just say that didn't happen as quickly as we thought. And that new job that I moved for, well, I'm still working there, but a major scandal came to light the week that our home buying process hit a snag. And let's just say that when it rains, it pours. Trust me, the expression is true. I moved to Seattle. With almost nothing going according to plan, it was pretty easy to doubt the course that I had set my life on. Initially, I would torture myself playing back every possible scenario in my mind, trying to figure out if I had made a mistake. I would play back each scenario in my mind and go through each one of them over and over, trying to resolve each one of them. This tiring process, along with being homesick and lonely, put me in a bit of a dark place. So what do I mean when I say that we need to embrace the doubt? Well, in my quest to resolve my internal conflict, to find some level of peace through certainty, I wore myself out. It wasn't until I realized that I would never have the answer I was seeking, that certainty would never come, that I finally arrived at some level of peace. Accepting that I would never know and that I would never be certain oddly left me with the sort of freedom that's hard to describe.
Be still, my darling. All is well, my darling.
I don't think that faith and doubt are opposites. In fact, I think that faith and certainty are opposites, because faith always requires some level of trust in the unknown. And if I was going to have any faith in myself, any faith in the idea that God played some sort of role in bringing me here, I would need to be okay with letting certainty go. Change and transition are definitely not an easy process to go through. Sometimes you'll mess up, and sometimes you'll be a mess. Step number 2 is to remember that it'll be okay. And even when it isn't, well, that's okay too. I think there's this sort of pressure on us to pretend like everything's okay, to project like everything is going well. How often do you walk by someone in passing and they ask you how it's going, and your response is, good, even when it isn't going so good? I think that most of the time we're just busy and we don't want to engage in the conversation, but I think the fact that good being the default answer is pretty telling. I think that we aren't always comfortable going there when it isn't going so well. I know that for me, the times when I haven't been honest with myself about the way that I was actually doing or feeling were the times that it was easiest to spiral downward. It's hard to choose joy or contentment in the midst of unpleasant circumstances or change when we aren't willing to admit that the change and circumstances aren't very pleasant in the first place. A false joy doesn't really feel like joy at all. So sometimes it's okay to just acknowledge what's going on. I found that it's much easier to detach myself from the circumstances and the change that I'm experiencing when I can acknowledge that those circumstances and that change is over there and that it isn't exactly fun, but that I'll be okay anyways. And if I'm not doing all right, well, then that's okay too. One thing that I've noticed is that it's during these periods of change and transition that we can grow and learn the most about ourselves and the world around us. It's during these times that our worldview can change and evolve, and oftentimes this involves some sort of process of deconstruction. Whether that's letting go of a belief that you've realized isn't healthy, choosing to do something different with your time, or simply deciding to let go of some habits that aren't healthy, deconstruction is a necessary part of any change process. But like doubt, deconstruction needs to be embraced in a way that isn't completely debilitating. Deconstruction without reconstruction just leaves everything in ruins. And for me, this meant learning that there are certain institutions that are in fact fallible. But rather than completely giving up on the church or being cynical about the real estate market, most of these things are what you make it. They are, after all, made up of people, and if you surround yourself with the right ones, well, people can be pretty great. I know that this advice isn't exactly neat and tidy, but neither is change and transition. I think that if we're willing to embrace the tension that comes with doubt and contentment and deconstruction, we'll find that what's on the other side of transition might not be what we initially wanted, but if we're willing to lean in, we might be pleasantly surprised with what we find. I'm Riley, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video and you found it helpful, I would love it if you like the video below and you considered subscribing. It really is the best way to help me support this channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.